Alrighty, yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. DDG94 here, back with another reaction video. Today, we're going to react to Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. Yes, that is right. This is arguably the last great Fast and the Furious before Fast and the Furious turned into what it is. We'll react to the other Fast and the Furious movies later on down the line. I'll go move on to other movies. I already got my list. I got a list right here on paper. I already know the movies that I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna come back to Fast and the Furious, and we gonna finish up the action pack trilogy, the action pack series. But the trilogy, the infamous trilogy that everybody knows about, which is Fast and the Furious 1, Too Fast, Too Furious, and Tokyo Drift. I think it's safe to say that yeah, this was the last good one before the series went down the route that it went down. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Tokyo Drift. This was one of my favorites too. I loved all the first three. The fourth one, like I said, it was alright, but it was kind of boring. It was too much dialogue. Wasn't that much action either. But this one right here, this was a really good one. I love this one. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. Tokyo Drift. Let's get right into it.
Universal had a hit franchise on their hands with the Fast and the Furious. They just weren't quite sure what to do with it. That uncertainty is how we get the third film in the franchise. The one that jettisoned almost all connection to the previous two in favor of introducing new characters, telling a story about an outsider who finds new friends and love in the world of racing. It's the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, and it's about to be revisited. Starring Paul Walker as undercover LAPD cop Brian O'Connor and Vin Diesel as criminal street racer Dominic Toretto, The Fast and the Furious earned more than $206 million at the global box office. Very good for a film made on a budget of $38 million. The budget was doubled for the sequel, Too Fast, Too Furious, and since Diesel chose not to return, the story followed Walker's Brian O'Connor as he brought down a Miami drug runner. The sequel did well, earning $236 million at the box office. The domestic numbers were down a little, but the international numbers were much higher. So you'd think distributor Universal Pictures would see a clear path to move forward with this franchise. It looked like a series of films about Brian O'Connor busting criminals and racing cars in a variety of interesting locations would be a success. But Universal and producer Neil H. Moritz weren't so sure. They did know they wanted to make a third film though, so they held an open writing call. Any writer who wanted to come in and pitch a Fast and Furious idea could do so. One writer who had a pitch was Chris Morgan, who had recently earned his first screen credit by rewriting Larry Cohen's script for the thriller Cellular. Morgan's pitch caught their attention because it not only moved the story to a new location, Tokyo, Japan, it also opened the door to a new racing subculture. The first film was inspired by real-life quarter-mile street races in Los Angeles and New York. Morgan's idea was inspired by drifting competitions, which had been popular in Japan since the 1970s. Races that make drivers drift their cars around tight corners, a technique that was perfected by drivers practicing on Japan's winding mountain roads. Morgan wanted to bring Vin Diesel's Dominic Toretto into the Tokyo drifting world, show him learning how to drift, and have him solve a murder mystery along the way. Getting Diesel to star in the film was unlikely. Not only had he skipped Too Fast, Too Furious, he had recently dropped out of the XXX sequel as well. It seemed like the only franchise he was interested in was his Riddick space adventures. So Universal told Morgan to remove Dominic Toretto from the idea. And while Paul Walker would have gladly come back for another sequel, they didn't want Brian O'Connor in there either. Diesel and Walker were both in their 30s at the time, and Universal wanted younger leads so they could appeal directly to the youth market. Specifically, they wanted the main characters in this film to be high school students, So Morgan wrote a script that is basically a twist on The Karate Kid Part 2. American youth goes to Japan, romances a local girl, learns drift racing instead of karate, and clashes with a rival who has a criminal kingpin for an uncle. With the story in place, Moritz reached out to a director, Justin Lin, who had recently made the independent film Better Luck Tomorrow. Lin raised that movie's $250,000 budget by maxing out 10 credit cards, wiping out his life savings, and getting a little financial help from MC Hammer. Moritz was very impressed by the film, which was about overachieving Asian American youths pursuing a hobby of escalating criminal activity. But Lin wasn't impressed by the script he was shown for the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. He told SF Gate that his response to Universal was, quote, "I think it's offensive and dated, and I don't have any intention of doing it." But Stacy Snyder, the head of the studio, said, "Just tell us what you'd do differently." So I said, to begin with, I'd get rid of all the gongs and temples and Buddhas and the visual gags and how the white guy is a foot taller than all the Asians. And she said, "Okay, we'll make the kind of movie you want." Ultimately, it ended up being a constant challenge. I kept on getting into discussions that were like, you signed me to do a certain type of movie. If you don't want to do that movie, get rid of me. But all you can ever ask is that the producers and the studio be fair and reasonable. And to their credit, they were very fair and reasonable, unquote. Scripted by Morgan and rewritten with Lin's input, Tokyo Drift centers on American teen Sean Boswell. He has a record of reckless driving and property destruction, so when he competes in a disastrous race through a construction site at the beginning of the film, this is going to be his third strike. The authorities want him off the streets, so his mom sends him to live with his father, a US Navy officer stationed in Tokyo. There, Sean befriends a military brat called Twinkie and falls for a classmate named Neela, who is into drift racing and has a complicated relationship with a guy everyone calls the Drift King, or DK, a guy who wants to follow in the criminal footsteps of his uncle, who is in the Yakuza. Sean is a fan of classic American cars. He brushes off the vehicles his Tokyo peers drive as cute little toys. But he gets interested in drift racing, and one of DK's associates, Han, agrees to teach him how to drift. As the film goes on, interactions between Sean and the Drift King get more troubled and more dangerous. When DK finds out that Han has been making shady deals behind his back, a chase through the streets of Tokyo ensues, ending with Han's death in an explosive crash. DK is also intensely jealous that Neela is.
They ruined the lore of this movie with bringing Han back. Why did you bring Han back? That never made no sense to me. First you killed him off. Then you had Jason Statham kill him off. Then you bring him back. It never made sense. It still don't make sense. Why is Han alive? Han should be dead. His memory should be in Tokyo Drift. You ruined the lore of Tokyo Drift. If anything, I don't understand why they had this kid, what's his name, Sean? I don't understand why they had him be the lead, but they never used him in any. They never made him as Han's replacement. That never made sense to me. Why couldn't he have been Han's replacement? That was like, bro, did the studio not have any faith in him and his acting? What was it? Like, because he should be part of the clique. I mean, he was a main character. So the fact that he got relegated to a side character in, what was it, Fast and the Furious 9 with Bow Wow, like, he got relegated to a side character, bro. That's how, bro, no. They ruined the lore of this movie with the future adaptations, bro. They ruined the lore because Han should have never came back. Sean should have been Han's, like, he should have been part of the clique. He should have been Han's replacement in the crew. he would have fit right in. The interactions between him and Paul Walker before he passed away, may he rest in peace. The interactions he could have had with so many, because he's not a bad actor. He's a good actor. I don't get why they didn't trust him going forward. That never made sense, unless they was trying to keep him away from it. To do unless you're doing a Tokyo Drift 2, I don't see the purpose of hiding Han off, of hiding Sean off, and bringing Han back, ruining the lore of your previous films. That shit don't make no sense, bro. Why would you bring Han back, bro? That shit is so fucking stupid.
Is falling for Sean. Of course, it all comes down to a race. Sean against DK, drift racing along mountain roads, and the loser has to leave Tokyo. Sean makes sure to bring his own style to drifting. The car he drives in the final competition is an American classic, a 1967 Mustang. Lin signed on in June of 2005, exactly 1 year before Universal planned to give the film a theatrical release. When the casting process began, he was hoping to find an Asian American actor he could cast in the lead role, even though Universal told him there was no one who was bankable. After a global search, Lin became convinced that the best actor for the lead role was a white actor from Alabama, Lucas Black, whose previous credits included Sling Blade, Friday Night Lights, and Jarhead. A supporting cast was then built around Black. Natalie Kelly makes her screen debut as Neela. Kelly had only just recently gotten her driver's license, but had to appear to be an experienced drift racer in the film. Rapper Bow Wow was cast as Twinkie. Twinkie is probably best remembered for his car, a 2005 Volkswagen Touran that has an Incredible Hulk paint job and a souped-up interior. It's by far the most memorable car in the entire film, and possibly in all of the franchise. Universal could do something like this back then, because they actually held on to the Incredible Hulk rights at the time. They probably couldn't bring that car back now if they wanted to. Brian T is the villainous Drift King. The legendary Sonny Chiba plays DK's uncle Kamada. Sean's parents are played by Linda Boyd and Brian Goodman. Zachary Ty Bryan appears as the jock Sean races at the beginning of the film, with Nikki Griffin as the girl who puts herself up as their prize. As Han, Lin cast Sung Kang, who had also played a character named Han in Better Luck Tomorrow. They saw their previous collaboration as the backstory for Kang's Tokyo Drift character. Han got mixed up in the crimes committed in Better Luck Tomorrow and went off to Tokyo to avoid prosecution. Despite being completely different from the previous Fast and Furious movies, Tokyo Drift had the highest budget yet, $85 million. That extra cash came in handy because much of the filming did not take place in Japan. Instead, Japan was recreated in the Los Angeles area. The waterfront docks, the winding mountain roads, those aren't in Japan. That's California. When DK chases Han and Sean through Tokyo's Shibuya district, that's mostly not Japan. The production shut down 6 city blocks in downtown Los Angeles and turned it into Tokyo by dressing street signs, buildings, newsstands, restaurants, and bus stops with Japanese kanji. Then they filmed in this fake Shibuya for almost 2 weeks. Eventually, cast and crew headed over to Japan for 4 weeks of exterior shots. When you add these expenses to the fact that over 100 cars were wrecked during filming and the drifting cars burned through around 2,000 tires, it's no surprise Tokyo Drift needed some extra money. Once the production made it to Tokyo, they found that city officials don't give out film permits. So the cast and crew ran around the city shooting guerrilla style, getting whatever footage they could. When they went to film in the actual Shibuya district, the police shut them down. And Lin discovered that the producers had hired someone else to tell police he was the director, because they knew a director would get arrested for filming in the Shibuya district. This guy was busted and spent the night in jail so Lin wouldn't have to. Lin openly admits that there are elements in Tokyo Drift that are similar to The Karate Kid Part 2. It might not follow that movie as closely as the first Fast and Furious followed Point Break, but the connection is there. Lin also had westerns in mind while making the film. Stories of mysterious strangers coming into town and taking on the bad guys. And SF Gates' Jeff Yang pointed out that it was in the tradition of kung fu movies as well. Movies like Drunken Master, The One-Armed Swordsman, and Shaolin Temple. Stories where a cocky young man takes on a seasoned master and fails, then learns the techniques necessary to defeat the master from an eccentric mentor. And he usually has to avenge a murder by the end too. Tokyo Drift is more likely to make you think of these movies from other subgenres than it is to make you think of the previous two Fast and Furious movies. So to enjoy the movie, you have to accept that it's something different. This isn't a story about Brian O'Connor or Dominic Toretto. It's a whole new group of characters, and you have to be open to their story, instead of wishing you were watching somebody else's story. Taken on its own merits, Tokyo Drift is a solid racing drama. Sean Boswell is a likable lead character, and Lin made the right casting choice. Not only does Lucas Black do a great job of bringing Sean to life, but he does so while speaking with his natural Alabama accent, something that makes his character stand out as even more of an outsider when he's interacting with people in Tokyo. The story he gets mixed up in there is interesting. We root for him to defeat DK so he can pursue a relationship with Mila in peace. And the thing that really makes the film worth watching is the presence of Sung Kang as Han. Kang emanates coolness in every moment he has in the movie. As he takes Sean into his world of drifting and questionable business, he's also making the viewer get more invested in the story and characters. Lin has said that Han scored through the roof with test audiences. He was the favorite character of every focus group they showed the movie to. We do come to care about this guy, possibly even more than we care about Sean. So when he gets killed off with roughly 25 minutes left to go, the viewer is just as devastated as Sean is, which gives us even more reason to root for him in the climactic race against DK. Lin did an excellent job directing the movie. Tokyo Drift has a great energy and style to it, and some awesome visuals.
Yeah.
One of the most memorable moments is a moonlight drive Sean and Neela take while on a date. Drifting around curves on a mountain road, part of a line of other cars. If drifting can look this cool, you can really understand why Sean gets so interested in it. Lin said, quote, "Drifting is a very cinematic sport. It's exciting to do something that's never been done before on film. It's amazing to me how we found new angles and new camera moves to capture the action. These drivers are so good and so precise. We were able to come up with new ideas on how best to capture it." Tokyo Drift went over well with test audiences, but Universal still wasn't sure what the future held for the franchise. Some were concerned that the Fast and the Furious was already played out. There was some consideration given to the idea of sending sequels direct to video. The studio was very big on making direct to video sequels. Just look up the American Pie, Tremors, Chucky, Death Race, Scorpion King, or Dragonheart franchises for proof of that. There was a chance the Fast and the Furious could join those ranks. But then the studio got an idea for how they could give the ending of Tokyo Drift a boost, and have audiences leave screenings buzzing about the possibility of a fourth film. They asked Vin Diesel to make a last-minute cameo. Diesel could have refused. He could have asked for more money than the production would be able to pay him. Instead, he asked for the rights to the Riddick franchise. Universal handed them over and offered him the chance to produce the next Fast and the Furious movie. He took the offer. So Tokyo Drift ends with a scene where Dominic Toretto shows up to challenge Sean to a race. And while doing so, he mentions that he was friends with Han. Actually, more than friends. They were family. So when Tokyo Drift hit theaters on June 16, 2006, it started drawing in not only audiences that were interested in seeing this new story, but also fans who wanted to see the Vin Diesel cameo that tied it to the other movies. Even with that extra bit of Diesel in there, it fell short of its predecessors. It made just over $62 million at the domestic box office, less than half of Too Fast, Too Furious' domestic numbers, which are almost $20 million below the first movies. At the international box office, it performed better than the first movie, drawing in over $95 million. That was still $14 million short of the second film's international box office. In the end, Tokyo Drift earned a total of just under $158 million. Not too bad, but almost $49 million less than the first movie, and almost $79 million less than Too Fast, Too Furious. Justin Lin had proven he could make a summer popcorn movie, and he was ready to step away from blockbusters for a minute. He went into production on the comedy Finishing the Game. He was planning to balance working on studio movies with making more indie films. But then Universal asked him to direct the fourth Fast and Furious movie, which led to him directing more sequels, and making a Star Trek movie for Paramount along the way. At this point, it's been a long time since he revisited the indie world. If that Vin Diesel cameo in Tokyo Drift hadn't opened the door to the next sequel, the Fast and the Furious might have gone direct-to-video after all. But now Universal knew how they were going to proceed. Dominic Toretto was coming back, and they were going to reunite him with Brian O'Connor, and we're going to take a look at their reunion in a movie simply titled Fast and Furious, in the next episode of Revisited.
Yeah, we'll do that somewhere down the line. We will go through that somewhere down the line. We'll go through the action-packed Fast and the Furious down the line, but for right now, I just wanted to do the racing trilogy first, and then I got some other movies in mind. So stick around because we got hella classics to go through, man. Like I said, I'm not waiting on Prim. I'm not doing it. I'm gonna go find other people and we're gonna do it with them. And if Prim just so happen to do some of these movies, we'll react to them. But till then, we're gonna do it my way because it's my channel. Till then, I will see you all next video. Till then, peace out.